Hello there, my name is Thiago and this is Inglês Everywhere, the podcast that helps you improve your English. I want to invite you to join me every week to take you to the next level, listening to all kinds of content, stories, interviews, chats, and a lot more. Welcome to Inglês Everywhere. Olá, ouvintes do Inglês Everywhere. No episódio de hoje eu converso com o ex-aluno meu, Denilson Freitas. Ele foi meu aluno ali por volta de 2009, 2008. E acontece que poucos anos depois, ele estava já morando nos Estados Unidos quando eu fiz a minha primeira viagem internacional, que foi para Palmdale, que fica perto de Los Angeles. Na época ele estava morando com uma família americana também amiga minha, e eu fiquei hospedado na casa em que ele estava, junto com Michel, que tinha feito uma espécie de intercâmbio aqui no Brasil, aqui em Vitória da Conquista, e deu aula lá na escola, na Glass School. Denilson, ele é um cientista. Desde criança, desde a infância e adolescência, ele já dava sinais de que gostava de todo o mecanismo por trás da tecnologia. Na entrevista ele vai falar um pouquinho sobre isso, de forma melhor. Atualmente, ele continua morando em Palmdale. Ele estuda hoje Engenharia Elétrica na CSU Long Beach e ele trabalha como técnico do laboratório de engenharia do Antelope Valley College. Você que está chegando ao podcast pela primeira vez através desse episódio, eu te peço para que você dê um follow na plataforma que você está ouvindo. O Inglês Everywhere está disponível em quase todas as plataformas de streaming e assim você se mantém atualizado com os últimos episódios. A nossa publicação ela sempre acontece às segundas e quintas-feiras, sempre com algum conteúdo que vai agregar algo nos seus estudos de inglês. Mas vamos então agora à entrevista com Denilson. Denilson, it's a real pleasure to have you here, and I'd like to ask you to start giving us a brief introduction of who you are.
I'm a native of Vitória da Conquista. My family is from Rio de Contas, so I'm from Bahia, and they very originally from Bahia, lived in Vitória da Conquista until I was 21 years old, and moved to the US, and have been living here since 2010.
So let's start from your childhood. I know that you've always been into science, and even as a kid or a teenager, I don't know, you started doing your science projects in your house. So tell us a little bit about how it was.
I always loved opening toys and just trying to figure out how things worked. That really fascinated me. I did and I did have an opportunity to go to good schools until fourth grade, and then I was transferred to a public school, which did not offer the best resource for students. Still, I should acknowledge that at least we have a public school, and we should be thankful for having something. But it's far away from what we need to address our talents and our students in our city. I don't know about other cities, but I talk specifically about Vitória da Conquista. So I dived deeper into science since when I transferred to this public school, Abdias Menezes, because I did not have much resources at school, and that really helped me because I became very resourceful. For example, if I needed to work with a multimeter, I could build my own. Using some old ones. I had two broken multimeters, and I kind of put together to make one work. And that's how it progressed throughout the years until high school. And then I had the opportunity to develop an idea, math game for a school project. It was supposed to be a pretty simple one, um, and but I wanted to just put some of my electronics knowledge into practice, and that became my first science fair project with the help of both Professor Posey from Cefeti, now IFBA, and also Professor Valmy. They both helped me a lot to incentivize me to compete in the science fair. While many teachers did not even, it was back then, 2004, I think, 2004, very few teachers even knew what science fairs were or did not have much experience with it. And I was very glad to find professors that could incentivize me. So that's what really triggered my passion for science.
That science fair was a local one, only held here in Conquista, or was it like a regional or a national one?
It was a national one, the Febrace, because I don't
Okay.
know if Bahia now has one, but back then we did not have a science fair. I mean, we could barely have public schools, so I I think that a bit asking too much to have such infrastructure. So I just applied for the national one. But usually that's how it goes. Like you should have a local science fair that allows you to compete in a state science fair and then allows you to compete in a national science fair. But our state is not very well developed in that sense. I believe it's true nowadays. And then I competed in Febrace. That's the national science fair that we have in Brazil.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this science fair? Because maybe we have a larger Brazilian audience here, and maybe some teenagers who are listening to our podcast, maybe they don't know what the science fair is.
Yeah, we have two science fairs in Brazil. Um, Amazingly, because usually in many countries you only have one, and in Brazil you have two. We have one that happens in at Mostratec. The name of the science fair is Mostratec. It happens in Rio Grande do Sul. That's an older one, and I'm also quite amazed to find out that they have been doing that for a long time. I think since the 1980s, if I'm not mistaken. And then Febrace started in the early 2000s, and was a great opportunity it's a great opportunity for students to develop a project. All you need is an idea, of course. I recommend also to have a good some good if it's a engineering fair, if it's an engineering project, something physical, very doesn't have to be beautiful or very neatly put together. It just needs to be good, presentable, and you also need a professor to sign in because a lot of times professors in Brazil, we don't really appreciate our professors in Brazil, and they are very busy to looking to homework and checking tests, and so they don't have much time to assist students. So if you can't find a professor to help you in that way, just their signature would suffice. Would be sufficient. But yes, so you need to have a project and also a professor's name. I'm just saying that in case that you have the bare minimum. But if you can find a professor that can help you more carefully, then I definitely recommend choosing a professor that um, knows a little bit about the subject and have experience publishing papers. For example, in my case, I had the opportunity to get an amazing, a very resourceful professor, Professor Valmy, and he had a lot of experience publishing papers, and he really helped me to write my project. So I had the easiest part, even though it sounds like the hardest part, but to build the project's not the hardest part, in my opinion. Is when you have to put everything write everything down and make it presentable for for evaluation of the science fair judges. So you need to have a physical project and also a good paper. I'm sorry if it's not very clear, my explanation.
It is quite clear. So can you tell us a little bit about this first project that you designed? What exactly was it?
Oh, they were pretty simple. I designed first. There was this math game, and
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure how all the students did, but for some reason, which I don't remember, because I was doing so many things back then. Um, but I come up with this idea of actually, it's like a candy machine that
Uh-huh.
not but not instead of using money, you'd use your mind to earn that candy. So and you could be competing with another student. So I
Okay.
made the 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 mechanism to
Mm-hmm.
to deliver the candy
Uh-huh.
after one of the students have achieved all the answers in the least amount of time. So I was able to make this project, and I don't know if I saw the pamphlet or a professor showed it to me. I think both happened. I knew about the science fair almost in the same time that Professor Valmy talked about it with me. And I was like, well, I have nothing to lose, and I really want to expand my knowledge, and because it happens even back then too. I don't know if it nowadays is the same, but I felt very outcast
Mm-hmm.
as a young scientist. I did not know
Mm-hmm.
anyone else who were doing what I was doing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in my city. I don't even know if my state. I don't think when I first competed in 2004, I don't think there were any projects from Bahia, unfortunately. So that
Oh.
was very strange.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not know what was happening. So I kind of today I understand why I really wanted to compete in the science fair, because I wanted to just meet more people like me.
Uh-huh.
It was very delightful. It was a very delightful experience when I competed with this math game, and I wrote the paper with my professor's help. Um, so I competed, and I do not know. I honestly I don't think my project was very good, my first one, but
Uh-huh.
I had to really be resourceful with tools and even to make the whole mechanism. We did not have any type of 3D printing back then, or oh gosh, even any type of machining to make the device. So I basically used hard paper and hot glue gun, and that's how I made most of the parts on the mechanism. And that's how it worked quite well. So I think that's something that really helped me and so in some way impressed the judges from what I remember, my resourcefulness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the quality itself wasn't very good. So that's something I also encourage the students. Like it doesn't have to be the best. If you can, that would
Uh-huh.
be great. But just make
Uh-huh.
sure that you are very resourceful with whatever you have. It's not is what you can do is what you do with what you have.
Now, I'm curious to know how old you were at that time when you designed your first project.
I was 15. 15. I
15.
competed
All
for the
right.
first time when I was 16, but I started to say 15.
So you just said that you felt like an outcast at the time, and uh, there weren't other kids here in town or in the state for you to share your experience. So what was your dream at that time?
Um, I don't really have a dream. I was kind of just
Uh-huh.
going with it. I mean, my dream was to become an I guess so. Yeah, my dream was to become an electrician and
Hmm.
change light bulbs. Um, that was, I mean, in the electric poles. So that was I was wanting to do. But was just like a goal, not like more a dream. Um, and that's something that really helped. Science fair really opened my horizons because it pushed me to actually come up with a plan. Like, yeah, I'm Vitória da Conquista. Um, it's hard even to get there. When I had to fly to to the U.S., you have to get a bus. Or there was a little airport. We had a little airport, but it was even hard to get out of the city.
Hmm.
Um, and and that we like, wow, even from Vitória da Conquista, I can still achieve that. Um, so yeah, I start to dream as a career after the science fair.
Yeah, and eventually you participated in in an international competition. So walk us through how it happened.
Yeah, so Febras qualifies students 9 projects every year to compete in the United
Hmm.
States. Um, and I was selected to represent the country, which was a big surprise because, as I said, I did not think that my project was really good.
Hmm.
But I don't know, judges, they kind of know what you're looking for in some ways. So I was selected, and coming from a low income family, I do not know even like I don't even know how I am here. I think back then there was 2 different organizations who paid for my tickets to get to São Paulo, and I was thinking like, wow, I can barely get enough money to come here. I had problems even paying for to apply. I think it was 30 reais back then.
Wow.
Um, and I did not understand like how the heck am I going to pay for this? So the back then the science fair helped with some of it, and then I think I got some help from the government. I got some help from the city to improve my project, and
Hmm.
I don't know how I anyway, the science fair paid for most of it. I still had to come up with something, and I think Cefet helped with some of it as well. I should be
Hmm.
more acknowledged than more. I don't remember exactly how they helped, but they did help. Um, so I went to the United States, which was just an amazing experience, and it definitely changed the way I saw things. I not know exactly. I just want to, since that experience, I wanted to make sure to do my best. I not exactly thought, oh, I want to come to the United States and become a scientist. I just want to make sure I did my best with what I had, um, and possibly pursue a career in engineering.
You have so many interesting achievements and stories to share. I'm a bit lost here now.
Oh,
uh,
sorry about
so
that, but thank you.
no, so you took part of this competition in the US, and then eventually you moved to the US to study, right? You also got a scholarship. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about the scholarship process, how easy or how hard it is to get one.
In my case, um, it was not a very conventional way, I guess. Um, I met, I was doing, I was writing my paper on the way back from the United States in 2006 or 2008. 2008. Yes, I was writing my paper on the way back. Um, and then I was someone sitting next to me was quite impressed with the fact that such a young person was writing. I think it was back then I was writing English. Yeah, I was writing English. And it's like, oh wow, like, why are you doing this? Like, kids your age are having fun, getting drunk. Why are you doing this? And I explained my story, and he told me, well, I'll be in your city sometime. Just let me know where you live and give me a phone number. It's like, I thought he was crazy, but at the same time, I just like, okay, this is my number here. And a couple months later, he shows up in my city, and like, he wanted to really know what I was doing and how I worked in my lab, which was in my garage. And he saw that, and he could arrange a scholarship through a senator in Oklahoma. But as we all remember, there was the crisis in 2008. And he could no longer help me as much, which was like an amazing achievement. I was so amazed by it. But in the same time, when you're young, there are so many things happening around you that you don't really understand at least I could not understand very much what was going on, like science fair, scholarship. And then at the same time, I came up with a machine for dental technicians. And that's how I developed this machine with the help of Ubirailton Lopes from BL Audio, and he kind of mentored me on the machine development. He makes like amazing products in Vitória da Conquista, and he's still a great mentor to me. So I came up with this machine, and with the money from that machine, I could then afford to move to the US. So I was the scholarship was very minimum. I don't know how many. It was like 10% of what we should be because of the economical crisis. But then I had some money from my own company, and I could afford moving to the US. So the scholarship was given to me, taken away from me in some way, and then I made my own scholarship in the meantime. Because yes, since during the meantime competing science fairs, I start my business, and I made this machine in Brazil.
So, and then you set up your own business here, which is related to this machine that you built? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a spot welding machine. Yeah.
A spot. Can you tell us a little bit more about this machine?
Oh, it's a device that dental technicians need to put metal structures together, but they have to prefix in specific locations. So this machine just makes the structure to work properly and to not move for the final welding process. So it's a pre-soldering process that allows the structure to stay together.
And how do you run your company? Because your company is here in Brazil. So how do you run it remotely?
Right now, we don't have much business anymore. But back then, I had the help. I had a great friend who also worked for me, and he made the machine. He stayed. He worked making the machines, and my family helped me with the sales, and I could do the sales online as well.
And now, how often do you come to Brazil to visit your family?
And now it's been a while. It's been 3 years. I was going to go back this June, but because of all the coronavirus, that's been postponed. Hopefully for the end of the year, but never know.
got to the US, it was probably like a complete new world for you, yeah? Moving from such a small town here in Conquista and then to the US. Tell us a little bit about this maybe culture shocks that you faced. How did it feel for you to be living in the US, speaking another language, living with different people, different culture?
Yeah, like I would say that I'm a very blessed person because I'm very religious as well, and I believe that God makes me put different people in our lives for a reason. And I'm very blessed that I have met great people throughout my life, and I I was able to come to the US to live with an amazing family. I Before moving to the US, I had the opportunity to meet um, Michelle Sinas, and a great girl that she's related to the family of class school, and
Yeah.
that another school that I got a scholarship as well. They
Uh-huh. And
I
you were
could
my student back then?
I was, I was a student, and so yeah, that's another important thing that like the our community is really helpful. And Monica
Yeah.
Camara,
Uh-huh.
she's great, and she was able to give me the scholarship. And at the same time, um, through her, I was able to meet my back then my future girlfriend. And
Mm-hmm.
when I came here, I moved with to live with her family, and that was a great experience. So it wasn't hard at all for me. It was actually quite easy to transition, but because I had the opportunity to stay with the Sinas family here.
Yeah, and at the time, I think maybe 1 year later, I took my first international trip, and I stayed together with you in the same house.
Yes, yes, was a great time. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We were still quite young at the time.
yeah, I know.
uh,
We're both in our twenties, right?
I rem-
Yeah,
uh, uh, I
we were
was
both in our.
I was actually I was already in my late 20s at the time,
Yeah,
but you
still,
were
still
what, in
20.
your early 20s, I guess.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. And what are the main differences that you notice between our culture?
I think the main difference is honesty. Not that Brazilians are dishonest, but there is repercussions to be dishonest in America.
Okay.
I guess the legal system works better here. Like it's
Uh-huh.
if you people respect you more, life is a lot more appreciated. Um, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or because of the legal system, but I think we don't have that. Life here is a lot easier, a lot
Mhm.
easier. Just if you want to, I think we have time machines. It's called airplanes. You just can get on an airplane and travel to Europe or travel to the United States, and you'll be in the future. And it's just a lot of different things. Um, to give you an example, um, we don't have like the Brazilian way here. You don't need
Uh-huh.
to. So I think that's such a beautiful way to value your citizens, to not force them to be a bit. I would say sketchy, like, oh, the Brazilian way. Let's just try to
Mhm.
find a way to do it here, and that's something I've experienced with Brazilian immigrants who recently moved into the United States. They carry that thing, like if you have a parking spot that is for that you should not be parking there. And it's very common to have some of my Brazilian friends who just, oh, it's just for a little bit, we don't care. And it's a very common thing, but for an American to
Mhm.
do that, it's like, no, you can get a ticket, and that ticket can go into your record, and that record, it's like there are so many
Mhm.
repercussions that you take
Uh-huh.
because you cannot talk to an official that you may know in the courthouse that can fix it for you. And I mean, it's not a perfect system. I'm sure if you know a lot, if you're very powerful in the city, if you are the daughter of a police chief, I'm sure you can find ways to clean up the tickets. But it's much harder. So I think that's the main thing. That's like um, um, there is much more accountability in the U.S. And yeah.
Denilson, do you think you would have had the same opportunities if you had stayed here in Brazil?
Different opportunities because so not the same, but I'll not say it was better or worse. For a long time, I was very resentful to the way Brazil treats usually poor people. Um, Brazil is not a bad country as long as you have money and you're like, I'd say middle to upper middle class. So life is pretty nice actually. But if you are from a low income family, it's really hard. It's almost impossible to achieve anything. But if you really have the desire to achieve things, you can still do it. I was pretty happy in Brazil. Even though resentful, I was happy back then. Like I had my business, and I was going for electrical engineering school at Cefet back then. But the only reason why I moved to the US is because first I had a scholarship, and it does all it. I was back then dating an American girl, and it was a lot more convenient to get closer to her living here. But I don't think that would be a lot worse. It all depends on the person's abilities and hard work.
Well, now, about like 10 years later, do you consider moving back to Brazil, or you want to keep up with your studies and researches in the US?
Yeah, I want to at least for a couple more years. I want to. I'm finally able to finally finish my degree here. Um, and and I'm working as a lab technician for a local university. So I think there is a lot more to achieve in here. But I don't see myself living here only. And if I if there is any need or things change, I don't mind moving back to Brazil. It's a great country, but again, it's all about your purchasing power there. If you're very poor, life really sucks there. But if you have some like middle class or middle class, it's not too bad.
And what exactly are you studying now?
Electrical engineering.
You didn't study college here in Brazil, but
1 year there. No, yeah, 1 year.
1 year here in Brazil.
Yeah.
So, would you say our Brazilian universities are way different than the American ones? How different or how similar are they?
It's not even about the universe that much, I believe. It's about the student, um, and the opportunities that are given to the student. So basically, the university is stepping stone for those opportunities. The universities in America are definitely more expensive, a lot more, but they pay the professors a lot better. So the average salary of a professor is about $100,000 to $120,000 per year, which right now is about $500,000, which is like a professor.
Yeah.
It's a millionaire within a couple of years in
Yeah.
Brazil. So
Yeah.
that definitely attracts good talent. So professors can incentivize students. But yeah, it's just the way things are in America. I think we still live the spoils of the Second World War. So for those of you who like are not very familiar with how things happen, but you had Europe and Asia, especially specifically Japan, completely destroyed, no infrastructure, and the US was intact. In human history, a unique opportunity to grow, and we still leave the spoils of that event, in my opinion. So you have a lot of hubs, especially specifically the one I live in. I live in like the Antelope Valley. That is a military hub that was got that benefit of that military development. So I think that's the main thing that helps the U.S. Like the Silicon Valley was a military hub. A lot of the hubs in Texas also have military bases surrounding it. So a military base provides stability. So a company moves to that place, to that location, provide jobs, high-paying jobs, high-skilled jobs throughout many years. So you attract good talent that want a stable life. So it's kind of unfair, Thiago, to kind of compare the university, because I don't think it's much about the university. I think the universities in Brazil are really good. If I can choose, of course, I want to learn in America because they have access to better equipment because of when you buy in dollars a lot easier. The taxes in Brazil are just shameful. What we do for our people as far as how much we charge for laptops and instrumentation, it just really stop us from achieving more. So it's a lot more about the system and also the geopolitical situation that makes the US a more prosperous place for a student who just graduated, for example. I'm not sure if I answer your
No, you
question
did.
properly.
Yeah, you
I
did.
make it long sometimes.
No, you did. Denilson, maybe it would be interesting if you could clarify a bit of the difference between public university and private university, since here in Brazil, a public university student doesn't have to pay anything to study, whereas in the US, they do. So, can you tell us about the difference between public and private universities?
Both schools you have to pay, um, but you can find ways to not pay for it, or the government can help you with scholarships and loans, which is like one of the causes we have such a crisis right now because we have $1.5 billion, I think, last I read, in student debt. But at least those students have the opportunity to get a degree and earn more income. So yeah, you have to pay, but if you are low income, you can qualify to programs. So it's not you just gotta. As anything in life, you need to be smart about things, and if you know how to to be in the system, it's it's not very hard. You can apply for scholarships and uh, and get scholarship and get loans, get scholarships. And in Brazil, it's free, which is great, I think, because you give access to education to many students who otherwise would not have any access to education. But at the same time, it kind of caps the ability of that school to collect money, because we don't really fund, or maybe the funds are not well managed in Brazil. Because I mean, it's different. There's two main things in technological schools in Brazil. They don't have much funding. Like the funding is almost exclusive from government funds, and we cannot, and we don't have the ability to compete in the international arena because of our tax system that taxes import products unfairly, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
that's I guess that's the main difference there.
You had to apply for college, right? Can you help our audience explaining how a Brazilian student who wants to study in the US can apply? So, what sort of things should they be doing in order to study and apply for an American university?
Oh, I recommend. I don't know very much about many ways of doing that. I can explain a little bit about the
Mhm.
way I did.
Yeah, sure.
I needed to be visible. Like if you just, at least the way I saw back then. Like if I just say, "Hey, my name is Danny. Can you help me out?" Um, nobody would actually even like, "Who are you?" So you kind of have to become visible. And I think the best way for academic purposes is a science fair, because
Okay.
in Brazil, it is the confluence of two different factors. The fact that we don't really value science fairs in Brazil.
Mhm.
I kind of follow what's going on in Brazil, and still we don't really care about science fairs. Which is okay. We're making this decision as a nation, and we are going to suffer its consequences. But in America, we value science fairs a lot. That's where we we find good students. Because in Brazil, we have not in Brazil. I would say it's a common misconception that we um, make a scientist, make an inventor at the university. The university is basically, in my opinion, a way to certify the person or the professional. So you're basically given a
Mhm.
certification. But the actual education, the the actual training happens, I think, throughout the person's lifetime. And I'm a big fan of Elon Musk, and
Mhm.
people like him, they have been developing things. Not at university. The university became a kind of sort of small stepping stone for them, but they have been developing products, techniques since they were very young. So
Mhm.
definitely use the fact that you don't have much competition in Brazil to do science, to go for to science fairs. It doesn't mean that you're not as good as other students, but it's a bit easier because you're not competing with so many students. And a national science fair award in Brazil may not mean much. I mean, means nothing in a school, in a university application, because you don't have to present anything. You just have to do a test. It's almost driving school, in my opinion. So you just have to pass a test, and oh, now I can drive. But there's no consideration for anything else, which I think is a
Mhm.
shame. But in America, that award that means nothing in Brazil means a lot. So you have you kind of have a certification to get scholarships, and I still use those awards to apply for scholarships. At least for the I got a couple of scholarships this semester, and I use those awards still. Um, so yeah, it's a good way, for in my opinion, if you are from a low income family. But if your family has some means to allow you to come to the United States. Um, you can just move in here and go to school, but it's a very expensive process, especially nowadays. We talk about at least R1 million
Wow.
to get a degree, say here. So it's about what, $20,000? Yeah, it's $100,000 at least for the 5 years. So yeah, you're talking about $1 million easy. So R1 million easy. But if you don't have those resources, you can try science fairs, in my opinion.
When you say 1 million reais, would that include only tuition and fees, or does it also include housing?
Yeah, like the whole cost, because everything here, like
Okay.
you earn a lot of money here, but you also pay a lot of money. It costs a lot
Mhm.
to live in the U.S. So yeah, like I'd say you're taking into consideration about $40,000 for a 5 years degree per year, and
Mhm.
yeah, so about $20,000 for tuition fees, and
Mhm.
then not $20,000 for rent and
Mhm.
expenses. Yeah, easily R1 million.
Denilson, what is or what are your major professional goals in life now that you're about to finish university? So, what do you want in your future?
I want to become a professor. So I want to get my master's degree, my doctorate here, and teach at a university. And also on the side to pursue my business ideas. Yeah.
Now, after almost a decade in the US, does it feel like home living there?
No, not really, because home is where you have your family, I guess.
Right.
But I want it to become the home of my family. So
Okay, so your plan is to come back to Vitória da Conquista when you're done with
I
your
want
studies?
to have my family here and visit Brazil. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. So to wrap up our interview here today, what piece of advice would you give to a teenager who is still uncertain about their career choices or plans for the future?
It's kind of hard. I don't really like giving advices like that.
All right.
But I'd say do the best for yourself. Don't compare yourself with other people. On a personal note, it's very easy in Brazil to look at people who are able to achieve a lot of things, mostly because the family have a lot of resources. So it's very unfair if you put yourself in a situation. So don't compare yourself with people who have more income or families have more income than you. You can achieve things on your own pace. So compare yourself to who you were last week, a month ago, and that's the best way to go forward. And choose a career, especially in Brazil. Be very careful in choosing a career that is pays well as well, so you don't have to be worrying too much about money. I think those two things. Don't compare yourself with others, and choose a career that pays well and that you love, of course. But it's kind of hard to have all those three things, but try to achieve it.
So, Denilson, thank you very much for your time and for the whole experience, life experience that you shared here with us today.
My pleasure. Anytime, Thiago.
Thanks for listening. You can send me suggestions on Twitter, Instagram, or by voice message. Also, follow us on your favorite streaming platform to check out for the next episode. On ingleseverywherepodcast.wordpress.com, you can have some further information about our show episodes, including transcripts. See ya!